Getting right to our first story, explosions in Boston, Massachusetts yesterday as the city celebrated Patriots Day. It's a state holiday in Massachusetts. Schools are closed. People take the day off of work to go to sporting events like the Boston Marathon. The race is held every year on Patriots Day. There was violence at this year's race. The latest information from officials when we produced this program yesterday evening was that at least 2 people had been killed and at least 69 more had been wounded. Early reports indicated that there were 2 explosions. They happened around 2:45 p.m. near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. A CNN producer was there.
Sure, I was on Boylston Avenue, which is sort of the final stretch of the Boston Marathon, maybe the final mile or two. I was packed with thousands of spectators on either side. It was packed with thousands of runners making their final sprint to the finish. And about 100 yards up from me, closer to the finish line, I heard an explosion. Turned and saw a big plume of smoke rising out of what looked like a sidewalk or a parking lot. I'm not entirely sure. It wasn't on the street. It was off the street. That much I could tell. Everyone sort of paused, wondered what the heck that was. And about 10 seconds later, about 20 yards from me on the other side of the avenue, another big explosion.
Nearly 27,000 runners were participating in this year's Boston Marathon. Some were still out on the course when this apparent bombing happened. The race was stopped immediately. Emergency workers, police officers, and Massachusetts National Guard members responded, rushing to the scene to help victims. Some of the people who were injured in the blast were taken to local hospitals. Others were treated in medical tents that were near the finish line to treat exhausted runners. Law enforcement officials said investigators found and were working to dismantle other explosive devices in Boston. A state government official said there were no credible security threats heading into yesterday's marathon. Now, this information was still coming in yesterday evening. You can get the latest details and updates at cnnstudentnews.com. Next, these events from yesterday in North Korea. They were part of one of the biggest dates on the calendar for the country. But as North Koreans celebrated, the rest of the world watched closely. Yesterday, the country marked the Day of the Sun. It's the birthday of Kim Il-sung. He's North Korea's founder, considered the nation's eternal president, and he's the grandfather of its current leader. Ceremonies yesterday paid tribute to Kim Il-sung. Other countries were keeping a close eye on North Korea because of concerns about the nation launching a missile attack. That's something it has threatened to do recently. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry just got back from a trip to that part of the world. He says the U.S. is willing to try diplomacy to talk with North Korea. But before that happens, Secretary Kerry says North Korea has to stop making threats and to ditch its controversial nuclear program. Our next story takes us to the state of Virginia. We're heading to Blacksburg and the campus of Virginia Tech. On this day 6 years ago, it was the site of the deadliest shooting rampage in U.S. history. The victims were teachers and students. The gunman, also a student, eventually took his own life. Every year since then, April 16th has been a day of remembrance for the Virginia Tech community. People come together for candlelight ceremonies like this one from last year. Also, other ceremonies and events take place. The names of the victims are read out loud. And the entire state of Virginia holds a moment of silence in their memories. This week, also an anniversary for Major League Baseball. On April 15th, 1947, Jackie Robinson made his Major League debut with the Brooklyn Dodgers. When he did, he broke baseball's so-called color barrier, becoming the first African American to play in the major leagues. Around the majors, April 15th is now Jackie Robinson Day. Every player on every team wore the number 42, Robinson's number. Back in 1997, on the 50th anniversary of Robinson's first game with the Dodgers, Major League Baseball retired his number for the entire league. Jackie Robinson opened the door for African Americans to play professional baseball, but fewer African Americans are following in his footsteps. Jason Carroll examines this trend.
He endured insults, threats, pressure at every turn, but Jackie Robinson would not be denied his place in history.
You want a player who doesn't have the guts to fight back?
No, I want a player who's got the guts not to fight back.
A new movie called 42, Robinson's uniform number, winning praise from players like Robinson Cano, the Yankee named for the trailblazing Brooklyn Dodger.
He's the guy that we're here for. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here right now.
Let's go, let's go, let's go. Accolades not just from the pros.
He was an inspiration to my African-American culture to start playing baseball.
The appreciation is there for Robinson breaking the color barrier 66 years ago and opening the door for generations to follow. But the reality is, few African Americans are choosing to do so.
He would be very disappointed. The group that he so well represented and fought so hard for is not represented at the levels that it used to be.
Why is Major League Baseball so disappointed? In 1986, African Americans made up 19% of players in the majors. Now, that number is down to just about 8.5%. Robinson's daughter says her father would have been worried about other statistics beyond the sport.
I think he would be very concerned that our black kids are not graduating from high school or they're not going to college. And that would be more of a concern to him.
But there is still the question of why fewer black kids are playing baseball. Do any of you play baseball?
Basketball is my sport because I love the fundamentals.
Not just that, but the perception there is a quicker path to the pros.
I think people switch to basketball is because it's more easier to make it to the NBA.
And then there's the Jordan factor.
Everybody thought that if they could be like Michael, it would be a great thing. So everybody started picking basketball instead of baseball.
Sounds about right to center fielder Jalen Junyon.
They don't see a lot of African inspirations to play baseball. They're not going to feel that they want to play baseball too.
Major League Baseball has created a diversity task force to recruit more African Americans. Cano says it's equally important to remind the young of the legends.
It's mean a lot, and it's a privilege and blessed to wear the number 42.
42, a number that will forever stand for a man who transcended ethnicity and race. Jason Carroll, CNN, New York.
CNNStudentNews.com is where we love to hear from teachers about how we're doing. Questions, comments, suggestions, or compliments, we welcome all of it at our website. Just scroll down to the resources box and click the Let Us Know What You Think link. I used a keyboard to write these words before I said them. A copy editor used a keyboard in reviewing them. A producer used a keyboard to line up this script in today's show. They're all parts of the job that we don't really think about. There are some folks thinking about how those who can't use traditional keyboards, and they've come up with this.
Anybody that has limited upper extremity function, so someone who can't use their hands, whether they're quadriplegic from a spinal cord injury, have ALS, maybe they're just a bilateral amputee, anyone who can't use a typical keyboard could use this device. The Lucy 4 is an external keyboard, but it can be accessed by laser control. This keyboard is specific for the Lucy, and it limits the amount someone's head has to move, versus if you had a QWERTY keyboard, your I would be over here and your S over here, which would require you to move your head. It provides somebody with limited ability to access a computer a way to access the world via the web. It also enables them to have a communication device. It enables them to text message and use the phone to do anything that anyone would do with a computer. Whereas before, someone that had a significant disability that had that much limited access to a computer really restricted them from getting jobs. It restricted them from going to school because it was so fatiguing. That's what assistive technology is all about, leveling the playing field. It enables people to be able to adapt to their environment. If there's a job that you want to do, if there's a sport, any activity you want to do, assistive technology is what makes that possible.
Our last story today follows the theme of David and Goliath. Goliath is played by a gorilla at a Kansas zoo. David is the goose at the bottom of your screen. And he ain't messing around. A flutter of wings and 2 quick webbed feet are all it takes to make an ape retreat. The best part is when the gorilla backpedals on its hind legs. It clearly didn't expect this. It was a beak attack. I think it just wanted to look at the birds, but it quickly learned that what's good for the goose is not good for a gander. Woo! Interesting that a bird could frighten a gorilla. I didn't think they were easily intimidated. I'd like to have more fun with this, but I goose we're out of time for that. See you tomorrow.